Professor Dr. Keith Moore, how he, his experience, how he read that Surah Al-Alaq, and he had to revise his book and he won Nobel Prize, and he went on YouTube and commented and all that. So that also proves to us that our modern knowledge, the facts, the formation of a baby and so on, the embryo, the growth stage and all that, Quran does touch those topics. And because we know Quran, the author is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator, so we know that this is true. And hence, now that we know that science has made progress and they have established these facts, so what is wrong in saying that these two pieces of information are compatible? Because they're saying the same thing.
The problem I have with it is because of two things, actually. One is because I don't believe the initial intention of the Quran was for that reason. And two is because the Quran is speaking in a very vague and foundational fashion. And this is not, I agree with, if you're saying that Zakir Naik says there's compatibility, there's no contradiction between the two. I agree with you in that respect. However, I would not go so far as to ascribe, our current understanding of things to what the intention of that ayah was. Because I think it was being very general and basic.
I do agree with you. But we, in comparative religion, especially doing da'wah to non-Muslim, this particular field or this particular knowledge or this particular method has been very useful.
Yes.
Okay? For example, if we look at Dr. Keith Moore, if I'm not mistaken, he became Muslim. If I'm not mistaken, I have not seen his Shahada per se. A scientist who became Muslim, did he become Muslim by the way?
I don't recall actually.
Anybody knows?
But I want to mention that you said that it's very useful, right? I agree that it can be useful, but it can also be detrimental. And I'll give you an example, a very big example. In the United States, there is a group called, I'm mentioning them by name, not to, the organization by name, not to belittle them, but to show you the problem. Okay, they're called Gain Peace. They do a lot of work.
Sorry?
Gain Peace, and what they do is that this is their main form of da'wah. They go around and they claim that there's science in the Quran. Okay, out of all the converts that they get, 60% apostate in the first year, and largely due to this. Because when they look in the Quran and they start debating with atheists and other things like this, they start to realize that this is not exactly the case. And so they become doubtful of the Quranic message. And that's why I say it's dangerous to ascribe scientific phenomenon, especially in a modern context of the Quran, because the Quran is so vague. It's almost, it's just not saying what we're saying. It's saying what it wants to say by itself, and for a different reason other than to describe physical attributes or physical phenomenon in the most detailed forms. So, because once again we go back to the argument about the early the Sahabi and the Prophet ﷺ understanding these messages. If they were revealed in the context that we understand them today in terms of modern science, they would have not understood that at all. It's impossible. So for them, the way they understood it is the way that we should understand it. That's what I'm trying to argue. In order for us to be closest to the interpretation of the Quran of how it's supposed to be understood, we should understand it how the Prophet ﷺ understood it and the Sahabi. That's how we should understand it. So if they understood it as being this way, that's the meaning of the verse. That's it. The more that we try to pile onto it, the more problems we create. So I'm not trying to say it's blasphemy or anything to do this necessarily, but what I am trying to say is that we should not, out of just pure caution. Because, and not because I doubt the Quran, because I'm doubtful of science.
No, could I just add a little bit? For example, these people don't say that it's a new meaning altogether, and the previous meaning is abrogated or cannot be taken completely. What they're saying, it could have multiple meanings.
Like an enhancement or something of that sort.
I don't know what enhancement.
Enhancement meaning that it's like a complementary, it's an additional information.
Yeah, additional information.
I'm still wary And like I said, it's for no other reason than just to be careful.
You don't champion the agenda, I can understand, but
Yeah.
I'm stopping people from using Quran and science as a mode of da'wah if they selectively use it.
I would prefer they do not. I'm not going to make a fatwa or anything, saying that you can't do it, but I think it's very dangerous. I think it's extremely dangerous. I think it should be straight. You should stray away from it as much as you possibly can. I just don't think it's beneficial. And
I have read one tafsir, if I'm not mistaken, by Ibn Taymiyyah. It was a verse about Earth rotating, and
it's
like someone tying his sarban. In Arabic, the word was kumara. See, I've read. I think Ibn Taymiyyah said, we don't know what it means, but this is what is mentioned in Quran. We don't really know what Allah is trying to tell us. Maybe the future generation will know.
Yeah.
So you see, even the ulamas before know that could be the people later will know something. The hidayah will come.
Yeah.
We have more advanced tool. Yeah, we have more advanced tool to understand it.
That's true. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. In regards to what Ibn Taymiyyah said, I understand what you're referencing.
You know the particular reference I'm
I understand. I know the reference that you're talking about. It's like tying your turban. Yeah, that's the shape.
The earth is rotating and the sunlight is,
The thing is that here's how I would disagree, and Ibn Taymiyyah is much higher than me in respects to knowledge, but how I would disagree with him in the sense is that he is suggesting that because we don't know if this is correct how you're referencing it, because I haven't actually read precisely that particular comment that you mentioned. I did read the other one though. And then that we don't know what it means yet. I would disagree with that because I do not think that particular ayah in question was one of those that was classified as one of the ones with the hidden meanings. For instance, like that wasn't one of them. And I think that it's, from my understanding, from my research, I have never seen any of the ones mentioning physical phenomenon classified under there at all. So what I'm trying to imply is that if we're not sure of it, right, or if, say, Ibn Taymiyyah wasn't sure of it, okay, then we should try to look for other scholarly opinion that can try to solidify whether that ayah in particular has a very particular meaning based on the Quran and the Sunnah.
I can give another example from a hadith where I think there's one hadith where Rasulullah said that shaitan runs in our body like how the blood runs or flows. At that time, it was not an established fact that blood actually flows in our body.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, one of the collectors of hadith, I'm not sure whether it was Bukhari or Muslim, in the translation or the explanation of the hadith, he also said, look, this is a Sahih hadith, I am satisfied with the asnad and with the narrators and ra'i and everything. I'm not too sure what exactly is the matan, what exactly it means. But since it is evidence that Rasulullah said it, so we take it as a Sahih hadith. So even there are other scholars who do not understand certain things.
Yeah.
But they still maintains it. And today we know blood is actually running in our body and flowing.
Let me continue going. Okay, I'm gonna keep sticking to my one principle here because I think it's the strongest argument. I don't think, even despite what some of the scholars have said in regards to these things, I think the strongest opinion here, and this is just also from what I understand what some of the other scholars have said, is that it needs to be understood based on the Prophet ﷺ and the companions. And if they did not understand that ayah, then the Quran was not clear to them, which is false. And I think that those ayahs in particular have never been mentioned as being unclear or as purposely unclear, or talking about the unseen or talking about the special letters, etc. This is not, those particular ayahs were not classified under them.
Let's have tea at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. So I am trying to be wary because I do not want to ascribe any interpretation that the Prophet ﷺ would have not, have ascribed to. That would be very difficult.
dangerous territory as well, because there were a lot of things not done during the Prophet's time,
Mhm.
doing it today.
Yes, but that's a fiqh
The
issue.
Quran was not even a book during Rasulullah's time. We did
True.
it. Why?
There was nothing prohibiting it.